Little did I know. Hey YouTube, it's Sunday.
Why are you such a copycat?
So, I've been brainstorming story times because I kind of got away from them for a little while. I know I've been branching out and doing other things, and I do still want to do kind of a mixing of that, like doing a balance and whatever, but I wanted to get on here and do another story time this week because I just, you know, it's the most comfortable thing for me to do, and I love it. So, I went through a whole train of thought that I'm not going to bother explaining to you here, and I thought it might be fun to tell another one of my Tinder hookup fail stories. I went on a total of 4 hookup dates from Tinder. I went on a couple other like actual real dates, and I already talked about one of the hookup dates, which wasn't really a hookup date, but kind of was. Anyway, I already talked about that one. That's the lesbian hookup gone wrong. So if you guys haven't seen that, you should definitely go check it out. It's entertaining. Also, just a quick disclaimer, this video is going to be about a hookup that happened. It's not exactly family friendly. I'm not going to be like graphic or anything, but just, you know, don't like watch this with your parents. Also, if you're one of my family members, depending on our relationship, like if you're, you know, a mother or an uncle or something like that, you might not want to watch this video because, again, it does get kind of weird. Anyway, all of that out of the way, I tried to film this earlier today and it was just so awkward, so I thought I would redo it now that I have, like, I don't have to really worry about anyone else hearing me, so anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So this story takes place about the same time that the other lesbian hookup story time takes place, for which I'm probably going to put a link in the description. So yeah, it's similar time. I was on Tinder a lot back then, and at this point, I'd gone on all of the Tinder hookup dates that I'm going to talk about at some point. This is the last one. It's kind of the reason why I stopped going on Tinder dates, Tinder hookup dates. Okay, so this guy, for the purpose of the story time, we're gonna call the guy that I matched with Mark. I'm also at some point gonna have to go through all my story times and like find the names that I've used and write them down for who it correlates with, because I don't know if I've used Mark before. I really can't remember, but he's not a same Mike from anywhere else because this is the one and only time I ever like interacted with him personally / physically. We'd been messaging on Tinder back and forth a little bit, but he wasn't very good at conversation. He was kind of boring, didn't really have much to say, and I mean, there were a couple of times where he was talking about like, I'm bisexual, and I, you know, had that on my Tinder profile, and he kept being like, oh, we should find a third girl so we could have a threesome, la, and I'm like, okay. Anyway, so we were talking a little bit, but again, he wasn't very good at conversation, and when I'm on Tinder or OkCupid or anything like that, I'm like super honest about what I'm looking for, and at the time, I had just broken off my engagement with the evil ex a couple of months before, so like, I really didn't want anything even semi-serious. All I wanted was a one-time hookup, so it didn't really matter that much that he wasn't great at conversation. I mean, like, conversation helps me get more comfortable with the person, but while it was still online, it didn't really matter that much. So, after a little while of silence on both ends, I just kind of messaged him and was like, hey, do you want to, like, hook up? This guy wasn't like the prettiest guy I'd ever seen, but like, you know, he was kind of attractive, and that's just what I wanted at the time. Little did I know. Little did I know. Put that at the end, Kai. So, he messaged me back pretty quickly and he was like, yes, I am down. The only thing is, like, I have to work early in the morning, so I have to be in bed at a reasonable hour, but it was only like 8-ish, so we still had a couple hours to play with, and I was like, yeah, that's fine, like, you know, it's not gonna take a long time, like, that's fine. So he gives me his address, and I instantly text it to, I think I called her Melanie, the girl from, again, the last lesbian hookup story time. I was never really safe when I used Tinder like this, but the one precaution I took was I always texted Melanie specifically. I don't know why she was the only one I texted. I rarely texted Connor, like, whenever I was going elsewhere. I always texted Melanie the address, the name of the person, a picture of the person, and like what time I'm going there, and I'd text her when I got back home. So I texted her the address and I was like, hey, this is what's going on, this is this guy's name, like, we've been talking on Tinder and blah blah blah, and like, I'm just gonna go hook up with him. It shouldn't take more than like an hour or so, like, we'll see what happens, because I wanted to give myself some time to kind of like get comfortable and talk to him first, because the first time was the only decent one of these 4, and we talked for a while first. Like, I got there and I was nervous, and so we just kind of like sat in his room and talked about random things and slowly moved into it. So that's kind of what I wanted to happen here, even though the second time was nothing like that. So, yeah, I got dressed, I put on makeup, and I drove over. I was only like 15-20 minutes away because I was still living at my dorm at the time, and he lived in Uptown, and so it was an apartment complex that I had to drive to, and there was a parking deck like down below that I had to park in. Now, he didn't tell me where to park, and I hadn't really thought to ask him, so I got there, and I'm like, alright, now I gotta figure out where I can park because, you know, parking decks in apartment buildings are kind of complicated usually. Like you can only park in certain areas, like every apartment has like their own parking spaces and you have to park in the guest parking space for their parking space. It's weird. I don't know. I didn't want to risk getting a ticket for a hookup. You know what I mean? So I'm like driving around and this parking deck is really tiny. And again, it's not like separate from the apartment building. It's like road and then parking deck and then apartment. So like, you know, I was like driving around under the apartments trying to figure out where to park, and it was very small, and I was still kind of a new driver at the time, like relatively so. I mean, I'd been driving for like, I don't know, like half a year, maybe a year, I don't know, but regardless, I wasn't like super experienced. So I'm kind of freaking out because I drive around a little bit and then I'm trying to turn around, but it's like also packed. Like there are some parking spaces, but like some of them say like reserved or whatever, and then there's like a lot of cars, and all of these spaces are tiny and the parking deck is tiny. And so at one point I like drove down to the end of it and then had to like drive back up driving backwards, which is so scary. For one, you don't know if there's going to be a car coming, and for two, like I was a relatively new driver. I had never even attempted to back into a parking space. Hell, right now I don't really know how to back into a parking space. Well, I'm sure I could if I tried to, but like, so I was really nervous. And I'm like driving around and then I wind up back at the end and there's like a parking space somewhere, but I have to like figure out how to turn around and go back over to it and whatever. And then I see this dude just standing there. He's like tall, has like dark hair, and then I realize he kind of resembles the guy in the pictures. Not a lot. Actually, the only person from any of these 4 Tinder hookup dates that looked like their pictures was the girl that I talked about last time. So anyway, he vaguely resembled the guy that I was supposed to be meeting up with, and he was just like staring at my car. And I guess maybe like because there wasn't really anyone else driving in the parking deck, maybe that's how he just knew that it was supposed to be me, but I hadn't contacted him or said anything. He just was standing there staring at my car and wasn't really moving, and I'm like kind of freaked out because I don't know where I am. Like I'm in this random parking deck and I'm stuck, and there's a dude just standing there staring at me. And again, like it didn't immediately hit me that like, oh, that must be him. I was like, there's a dude staring at me. Why? But I vaguely realized that I kind of recognize him. So he walks over to my window and I like roll it down and he's like, hey, are you the person I'm meeting? And I'm like, oh, what's your name? And he's like, oh, I'm Mark. I'm like, oh, yes. That is me. Hello. I am having trouble parking. So he helps me get into a space doing the, you know, like, oh, come on, stop. Oh, come on, stop. That whole thing. And eventually, it's a whole thing, but eventually I get parked and it's fine. Mind you, they were still narrow spaces, so I had about this much room in between my car and the car beside me, but you know, it's fine. I managed to squeeze. So, you know, I park my car and I like kind of adjust and stuff as I'm getting out. I was kind of upset that I didn't get to like walk up to his door and knock on it because I wasn't like ready. I was in the car and driving and like frustrated, so my hair was kind of everywhere and my clothes needed to be adjusted because you know when you sit down your clothes shift. But it's fine, it didn't really matter. So I got out, he like awkwardly gives me a hug and I'm like, okay, well that was weird, but alright. So then he like leads me up the stairs to his apartment. I kind of had a weird feeling about this guy at this moment. I don't know why, but I just kind of like, it wasn't like an extreme like get out kind of feeling, but it was still like a maybe not. But you know, instead of leaving like I should have and just like made up an excuse or just been like, you know what, actually I think I'm just gonna go, maybe we can do this another time or something like that, I didn't, because I just spent so long trying to park and I just spent the gas to get here, so I was at least gonna see what was gonna happen. Again, I didn't say I was safe when I was doing this. Listen, always trust your gut. So we got to the apartment, he opens the door, lets me in, whatever. It's a studio, and I didn't know this going in, and it didn't really matter that much, but so he opens the door and is like, alright, I'm gonna give you the tour, trying to be whatever. And so he like, we open up and we're in the kitchen. He's like, so this is the kitchen. I'm like, alright, cool. And then we walk right past the little bar that was there and he's like, this is my living room. I'm like, alright, cool. And then he points to the corner. He points to the corner, and in that corner is a mattress. Not a bed, not a frame. It's a dirty mattress, mind you. Like, there weren't even sheets on this mattress. It was just a mattress with like a big blue comforter and like no pillowcases, and it was like not made at all. Like, he knew I was coming over. He had 15 or 20 minutes. He couldn't have made the bed that we were going to be using. Like, rude. But yeah, so he points to the bed and he's like, and that's my bedroom. And I'm like, alright, cool. So in the living room, there was just a couch, and then like a few feet in front of it there was a TV on the wall. And so I go straight to the couch and I sit down, and he was watching the news. You guys, he was like 23. He was boring. So he's still like shutting the door by the time I'm like sitting on the couch, and he's, you know, getting some water or something, and he asked me if I want anything to drink, and I said no, because again, I did have weird vibes about this dude, and at least I did that. I still wasn't very smart, but at least I said I didn't want to drink. So I'm sitting on the couch, I'm like watching the news, very bored, and I'm just like trying to make small talk, because yes, small talk is like excruciating, but I kind of felt awkward, like I didn't know I was walking into this specifically, and like, I don't know, I was kind of uncomfortable, but so I'm trying to make conversation, and he's not doing a very good job, because obviously, of course he's not, like, he can't even keep up a text conversation even a little bit. I don't know why I expected him to be decent at regular conversation. He did make sure to tell me multiple times though, he randomly would like bring up threesomes, and apparently he said that his girlfriend, like his ex-girlfriend, semi-recent I think, had like cheated on him by getting in a threesome with two of her other friends, and she like screwed him over so bad. And I'm like, yeah, because I need to know about this. Yeah, that's good conversation for not even a first date. A hookup. I'm sorry, I don't give a shit about your dating history or who cheated on you. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't. Let's talk about other stuff, please, and thank you. But that didn't really work. He didn't really want to talk about anything else. So he mentioned that multiple times, and I just kind of started being like, okay, whatever. This isn't gonna work out. Like, this dude is boring. He's not making good conversation. Like, I don't even, whatever. So I'm like staring at the news. I don't even remember what they were talking about anymore, but it was like, whatever. It was weird. I was uninterested. And so I'm kind of starting to formulate like, alright, how am I gonna look over at him in just a minute and tell him, hey, I think I'm just gonna go, because I wasn't really vibing with the dude, you know? And I was like, I'd rather be in bed asleep, not in your nasty bed with you. But yeah, so I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna tell him this, and then he just grabs my boob. I'm not even kidding. There was like no conversation for a minute. Like, he had said something else about his ex-girlfriend who cheated on him, and I'm like staring at the TV like, alright, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna tell him I'm gonna leave. And he's just sitting there watching TV. I think his arm was around me at this point, and then he just takes his other hand. He's like sitting on the side of me. He just takes his other hand and grabs the boob. And he's like, wow, they're nice. And I'm just like, thanks. So then he like grabs my face and kisses me and whatever. And for how boring he wasn't an amazing kisser by any means, but I've had much worse. Namely, that guy in that story time. I don't remember. I think I called it like I made out with the guy in front of my ex or something like that. But that guy, holy shit, was awful. So compared to that, and like this guy was so boring, I was expecting it to be something that bad. It wasn't. It was actually fairly pleasant. Nothing special, but fairly pleasant. So I'm like, alright, you know what? The conversation doesn't matter. Like, I'm already here. I already spent the gas. I already parked. Like, you know what? This is what I'm here for. It's happening now, so it's just gonna happen, and that's fine. I'm more than fine with that. Stop talking about your ex-girlfriend. At least we're doing something now. Yeah, so we're kissing. His hand is just like pulsing on my, you know how like there are ways to like grab a girl's boob and make it feel nice for both people involved or everyone involved or whatever. Like, there are ways to do it, and then there are the people who just do this. I'm sorry, do you think this is like an air horn? Like, do you think that you're gonna make like a bicycle go wah-wah? Like, no, like so that noise was weird. But that's not how you're supposed to grab a girl's boob. I'm just saying. So that was happening. I'm like, well, whatever, whatever. And so we're kissing, and then like, usually when you start kissing, that leads to like kind of a foreplay or something else happening. That didn't happen. We're just kissing 1 minute, and then the next he's like standing up and like pulling me over to his mattress. His nasty, dirty, unmade mattress, and he like takes my clothes off, takes his clothes off, whatever. So then I'm just like laying on this mattress like, alright, guess this is happening, and he's like, you know, putting the condom on because safety first, kids. So I'm just like laying there, right? And then he, you know, starts kissing me again and like starts moving on me, and I figure, you know, he's just trying to like tease it out a little bit at first, because that's a thing that some people do, and sometimes that's nice. So I'm like, alright, fine, whatever. So that was kind of working a little bit, you know, he's just like moving a little, and I'm like, alright, I can get behind this. Now, when is it gonna start? Of course, I didn't say any of this, and now, looking back, I wish I had, just a little bit. So he, you know, he's moving, and then he just keeps moving, and it keeps just being that. And I'm like, all right, like, how long are you just gonna, like, move up and down against my body? Like, nothing is even happening. Like, I'm bored. I mean, his kissing was pleasant, but, like, I was bored by it at that point. And then he starts moving up and down on my body faster, and I'm still laying there like, is this it? Like, this isn't doing anything anymore. Like, let's do something else. And he just, you know, keeps moving faster and faster and faster, and then he randomly, we hadn't spoken, he like makes a face, and we like weren't even kissing anymore at this point, and I'm still just laying there waiting for something good to happen, and then he just looks at me all out of breath and goes, "Can I come on your face?" What? And that's what I said, and then I was like, no, and he's like, oh, okay, and he's wearing a condom, so it's fine, and then he like moans and like collapses on me and then rolls over, and then it hits me. He didn't just like blow his load from rubbing against my body. No, it was just so small I couldn't feel it. Legitimately, there was zero sensation. Like, it wasn't even like I felt something occasionally brushing against. No, there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was worried that maybe he wasn't even ready. Oh my god. So he like rolls off of me, and I'm still just kind of laying there like, what just happened? And he tells me how great that was, and like kisses me, and I'm just kind of like, and so then he like tries to start cuddling me. Like, he doesn't make a rush to put his clothes back on or anything like that, and I just start scooting away from him, and I'm like, you know what? And he's like, what, you don't want to stay? I mean, we can do more stuff if you want. And I was like, no. No, we can't. I'm gonna go. And at this point I was kind of mad almost, because the only reason I wasted my time and stayed for as long as I did and stayed during that bullshit was because I was like, I already drove here, I already parked, and you know what, I've been wanting this anyway, so I may as well feel good tonight. But I didn't. Instead, I was mad because there was nothing. So I leave, I get dressed really quickly, grab my stuff, and I'm just like kind of shaking my head a little bit as I'm leaving, and he like tries to kiss me. Like, he like walks behind me and like grabs the door and opens it for me, and then tries to kiss me as I leave, and I just kind of do the, here's my cheek, and pat him on the shoulder. He's like, this was really fun, like, we should do this again. And I was like, I honestly don't even think that he could tell that I was not into it, because he like seemed like, oh my god, this was such a great experience. Like, he kept saying, like, while I was getting dressed and stuff, like how good that was, and I'm like, like, I'm still blown away by the fact that, like, how did he feel anything? Like, if it's so small I can't feel anything, how did he still make himself finish? Like, so I dodge him a little bit, and then I leave, and he's like, bye, and I didn't even turn around. I just kept walking and was like, again, like angry, but also kind of like grossed out now. Like, I just sat through that, and so I get down into the parking deck and I get in my car. As expected, it's kind of difficult to get out of the parking space, but not as difficult as it was to get in, so at least there's that. So I leave, and on the way home I call my friend Melanie, and I tell her what just happened. Mind you, I don't generally call people. Like, I prefer to text most of the time because calling people gives me anxiety and it's just not a thing. But I had to talk to someone, like, not texting. I had to vent. So I called her and I told her everything that happened, and she died laughing. Like, she just, oh my god, she was making jokes, and I was like, it's not funny, but it is funny. I was just mad, and so I got home and was like, yeah, no, never meeting up with that guy again. I deleted his number off of my phone, and I forgot to unmatch him on Tinder. Again, a mistake I made with the girl. But because of that, he messaged me out of the blue a couple of weeks later, because I never like messaged him after I got back home, etc. He never messaged me, and then a couple of weeks later he messages me and is like, hey, did you ever find a girl to have a threesome with? And I just didn't respond and blocked him, and yeah, stopped going out on Tinder hookup dates. Actually, I didn't even go on another Tinder date for a long time, until recently. Like, it wasn't until recently, and this happened like 2 years ago. So yeah, it just, that whole thing was uncomfortable. I've never experienced anything like that. I have had bad sex stories, I've had bad hookup experiences, but I have never, like, I've also experienced guys who weren't big, but I have never, aside from this one time, had an experience where I legitimately felt nothing. Yeah. So, that's gonna to be about all for this story time. I hope this was enjoyable. It was kind of fun to tell this time around. The first time I was mostly just like awkward and nervous that someone was gonna hear me and be like, oh god, what a horrible story, but I don't know. Anyway, it was an experience. And let me know if you guys would like to hear more of my Tinder hookup stories, because I have a couple of other ones and who knows, I might have some more in the future. But yeah, for now, that's gonna be about all. Thanks so much for watching and everything. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Stay sexy, MeowChiatos? I don't know. Stay smart. Whatever. Please don't forget to follow me on all of my social media. Links are in the description box down below, and I also have merch out on threadless.com, so that's also down below, and I'm going to be working on some more for that as well. And also, I revamped my Patreon. I know I've talked about this in a couple videos recently, but I revamped it. I put up new tiers, and I'm really excited. So yeah, go ahead and become a patron. Become a patron. You can see Patreon exclusive posts and everything like that, and I will be coming out with more content just for Patreon. So if you want to see that, stay tuned, get on my Patreon, and yeah. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.
Why are you such a copycat?
Also, there's alcohol in this because I needed it to tell this story.